I rise to give my views on the bill, Honorable Speaker, and I have identified what I consider positives in the bill and those that, in all honesty, have problems with. I will not take the path that has been taken by Senator for Migori to wholesale condemn the bill, because in my view there are some good provisions. Honorable Speaker, let me start with the things that I consider positives. If you look at Section 4 of the proposed bill, Honorable Speaker, they are what they set out and call guiding principles of disaster risk management. There's something they called an all-hazards approach to disaster management. Honorable Speaker, we have had disasters here in Nairobi. And if people hear that there has been a fire, say in a market or as the one that happened recently in Mukuru Kwanjenga, everybody's mind is tuned to treating burn victims. And they forget that these people's houses have been affected. They have no places to sleep. There's children who are going to school who have no places to sleep. Books have been destroyed. Clothes have been destroyed. Personal property and other effects have been destroyed. So I'm hoping that if this is going to be the guiding principle to disaster management, we must identify all hazards that go or result from a disaster. Then the next one I like under subsection 2 is enhancing the capacity of the local communities as a front line to disaster risk management. Honorable Speaker, many speakers here contributed, have given examples of the disasters that have happened in Nairobi. In fact, Honorable Speaker, if you take the example of the floods that we experienced, if you speak to the people who are living in those structures along the rivers, there is no person who just puts themselves at risk voluntarily. They have been forced into some of these risky accommodations because of their financial standing, Honorable Speaker. You will find that the accommodations that have been offered closer to the river, on top of bridges and all the other, unsafe areas, are actually cheaper. If you ask for the rental prices of those accommodations, they are cheaper than, the others. And if you speak to the community there, Honorable Speaker, they will tell you that if you have conversations within the community and they are told this is not an area you should be occupying, many of them are willing to cooperate, Honorable Speaker. And if you enhance the capacity of the local communities there and train them, as is proposed in the bill, as frontline actors in disaster risk management, I think it would be something that is positive, because we should be looking more at the preventive side other than being reactionary and coming down to offer assistance when the disaster has happened. Then there is a third one of transparency and accountability. Honorable Speaker, after the floods that we experienced here in Nairobi, many homes were affected, especially in Mathare and Ruaraka. One of the things that we have continued to say as the leadership in Nairobi is that there was no transparency. There was no transparency, Madam Speaker, on how even government response was coordinated. There was no transparency in what was required of the community to do. If you speak to the Member of Parliament for Ruaraka, the Honorable TJ Kajwang, he is still livid, Honorable Speaker, because initially the communication that came from government was that they were going to demolish structures up to 30 meters away from the high water line. And how that moved to 50 meters and then to 60 meters, and then structures are being demolished way beyond what we had been told is the area that would be affected, is something that nobody gives us an answer. And this is what we're saying. We would like that there be transparency and accountability in disaster management and approach to disaster risk management, Honorable Speaker. Then there is the question of the protection of the vulnerable. And I like this as a guiding principle, especially the old, the disabled, the women and the children in these areas must be treated very specially. Then, of course, Honorable Speaker, number 5, it says supporting, under subsection 5, support of the national governments and the county governments, including the local communities in disaster risk management. If you look at the 4th schedule of the Constitution, Honorable Speaker, this is one of those functions that is co-shared. If you look at function number 24, disaster management is listed as a national government function, under function 12 of the county governments, firefighting and disaster management is a function of the county governments. So that support, Honorable Speaker, is critical. And I will discuss some of these, the challenges and between, when it comes to the support from national government to county governments, Honorable Speaker, and we're hoping that there would be greater synergy in making sure that these disasters are managed in a prudent way. Honorable Speaker, the next thing that I consider positive in this proposed bill is found under Section 48, where we are introducing a fine for people who make false claims, who claim that they are victims and they are not victims, because we have seen this specter even here in Nairobi. Our communities there, the Nyumba Kumis and the chiefs and the local administration have tried their best, Honorable Speaker, but there is this specter here in Nairobi, because the problems of the people are so entrenched and they are bigger than what is actually put out there, Honorable Speaker, so that if somebody even who was living in another constituency separate from where it happened, say Muradi fire, if you call a meeting at the chief's office there saying, oh, everybody affected by the Muradi fire should come there for assistance, you find people who are not even living in Muradi also showing up. And sometimes you don't blame them, because they know at least when they go to those centers, there will be something to take home, there will be food. But at the end of the day, we want now people to know that it is going to be a criminal offense for you to make false claims. If you are not a victim, you have not been affected, please allow those who have been affected to be helped without you coming to, again, reduce even the share of the help that is supposed to get to the victim. So there's a proposal to have a 1 million shilling fine for false claims, or a 1-year jail term, or both for people who make false claims. And we must address the broader question of the state of our people, Honorable Chair, because as I've said, it is not always the intention of people to make these false claims, but they find themselves having to do it in order to survive. Another one, Honorable Speaker, and this is the last positive that I have seen, is under Section 50, the bill proposes a 10 million shilling fine or a 10-year jail term for people who misappropriate relief food and relief equipment. Because this is another problem, Honorable Speaker. The people in possession of relief food and those who have been given even the equipment to be able to help. You find people selling relief food on the market. You find people selling mosquito nets and mattresses and other things that have been meant for the people. And I want to thank the Senator for Migori here, because at the ODM party, he is our disaster manager. And he has done a fantastic job. There have been no complaints. In fact, he has done a good job. Even the Red Cross is jealous of the work that has been done by Senator for Migori. So the people who misappropriate, and there have been no complaints. As SG, I am here to assure the House that I have not had any complaints as regards the job that was done by Senator Eddie during the disaster response by ODM. But those few who want to take away what has been donated by Kenyans in good faith to be able to help their fellow countrymen, now they will face a jail term of 10 years or a fine of 10 million or both. Now, Honorable Speaker, if you allow me, I will touch very quickly on the things that I consider negatives. The first negative, Honorable Speaker, has been touched on by the people who've spoken before me, the senators who've presented before me, on this desire to always come up with new authorities and new boards and new, structures at the national level, Honorable Speaker. So under Section 5, subsection 5, you will see that there's a new authority that has been created there for disaster management. This is a big problem for me, and I always look at the composition of those authorities. I have always had a problem with them. If, Honorable Speaker, the role of disaster management is shared, you should see that reflected in even the composition of the board or the composition of the authority. But if you go to Section 9, or on the composition of the board of the authority, 5 out of the 9 members are direct national government appointees. And yet, this is a shared function. In fact, Honorable Speaker, there is only one representative from the Council of Governors. And this is an imbalance that we continue to protest as a Senate. We feel that if a function is shared, then it should reflect even in the balance of the numbers in the management of the authority. Then you go to Section 29, Honorable Chair, that attempts to classify disasters as either national or county disasters. I do not I do not see the wisdom behind classification of a disaster, because if you look at section 29, subsection 4, it attempts to classify a county disaster as a disaster that only affects, if it affects a single county, then that is a county disaster. Honorable Speaker, I think this is totally unnecessary. You cannot tell me, for instance, a disaster that befell the people of Manyora, because it was confined to one county, is a disaster that should be relegated to a county disaster status. Or Solida, or in fact Hillside in Russia, or Toy Market, Westgate, or Garissa University. Those are disasters that require national attention. And I say this because if you go to then section 30 of the proposed bill, it is only when it comes to a national disaster, something classified as a national disaster. It only in those instances can the president then declare a state of disaster in the country that then allows the release of resources, equipment, personnel, even essential goods to be able to help those people. Honorable Speaker, I think this is superfluous. There is no need for us to classify disasters. Let each disaster be judged on the basis, on a case-to-case basis, and all the resources of the country should be available to help our people, whether the disaster crosses boundaries of counties or not. Madam Speaker, the next one is on the qualifications of the people who are supposed to man the authority and even what they call the county disaster risk centers. Madam Speaker, we had a very hilarious exchange here in Nairobi with the county disaster management team. When you look at the qualifications of the people managing, say, fire in Nairobi, we had a very clear mismatch of skill and responsibility. You have people with degrees in theology. You hear is the one who's the head of fire response in Nairobi. We are not saying that people with degrees in theology are bad people. But Honorable Speaker, like the Senator for Kitui, I hear he's a bishop. But Honorable Speaker, we need people because our universities are churning out professionals in disaster management. So if you look at section 10 of the proposed act, Honorable Chair, the chair of the board under section 10, there is no requirement that that person be an expert in disaster management. They just require a degree in a bachelor's degree from a university recognized in Kenya. And you know that is going to be a problem if you followed the conversation that Senator Kajwang was bringing here on the quality of education and the professionals that we're putting out. Why can't we make it clear if it is disaster risk management, there are universities, there are students, there are qualified professionals in this particular field. Let them be the ones to do this. We cannot open this to everyone, including lawyers like myself, Honorable Speaker. And I know the Law Society of Kenya will come for me. But it's the truth. If you look at section 20, subsection 1, on the qualifications for the Director General of the authority. In fact, on this one, they don't even ask for a degree. It just says he shall be competitively recruited. Honorable Chair, we're going to run into problems. If you go to section 36, subsection 2 and 3, on the head of the County Disaster Risk Center, they just say he or she must be a person who holds a bachelor's degree from a university. I would prefer that we specify that these people must have training and knowledge in disaster management because these are courses that are offered by our universities. Then, Madam Speaker, I want to go to section 49. Section 49, Madam Speaker, attempts to create an offense for making or circulating false alarms. Making or circulating false alarms. And I know that it might have been well intended. It might have been well intended, but this is a section that I believe is subject to abuse. Because, Honorable Speaker, we must measure between the constitutional right to free speech and trying to fetter on that particular right by introducing very dangerous provisions such as this. You might find yourself, you might not be the originator of a message on WhatsApp, for instance, that there has been a fire in Mradi. In fact, the way we knew about the fire in Mradi, most of us saw the information on social media, on WhatsApp, on our social media platforms, including Twitter and Facebook. So you can imagine you creating an offense that if somebody posted something saying there has been a fire in Muradi, and then it turns out, in fact, the section talks about if it is not in the magnitude that you have said it is, that is now going to be an offense. I believe this is a dangerous trend, and especially in this regime that looks for excuses to arrest people, this regime that looks for excuses to abduct people. This one is a very dangerous tool in the hands of Kenya Kwanza. Honorable Chair, finally, I want to go to section 53. Section 53, subsection 1, provides that the people who are working currently at the National Disaster Operations Center and the National Disaster Management Unit will be seconded to the authority for 3 years. I don't understand, and I would like somebody to explain to me why the period of 3 years, because these are people who are already working there, and that if you don't wish to join the authority for those 3 years, you can go back to your parent authority or parent institution, or apply afresh to the authority for you to be employed as a worker there. That is another dangerous tool, especially in the hands of a government that we do not trust, in the hands of a government that has shown that if you are not a shareholder and you apply for a job and your name is Wafula, I am telling you, you will be told you have no shares in this government and you will be thrown aside. So this is not a tool I would want in the hands of this Kenya Kwanza government, or indeed any other government. Let it be clear that the people working in these two institutions will transition to the authority without any hindrance whatsoever, because they have been doing this job, they should just be absorbed. Honorable Chair, with those many remarks, I don't know if I say I support or I don't, because I have problems and I've seen also positive things, and I'm hoping when it comes to the third reading, I will be proposing those amendments to deal with those issues that I have raised. I thank you, Honorable Chair.
Senator Murgor.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. I join my colleagues in airing my views, and I support the bill, even though I have suggestions to make